last episode natin. Okay, ito bro. We had a lot of discussion about Gomburza, Rizal, Palais. Ang dami natin na-cover in, just roughly 40-45 minutes. That was fantastic. Medyo nag-bash ka rin sa Malaysia. I don't want to talk about them. Baka get in trouble. Ito, bro. Balikan natin ito. So recently I got into trouble again. Surprised when I had this piece for Journal of Democracy. The title is The Sun Also Rises, which is not my title. It's kind of sounds like the title of sila yung mga malutikiya type, yung mga
Oh,
popular ng
oh,
time
oh.
election. But anyway, I'm not disowning it. Many people liked it anyway. Now,
Okay lang yan.
no, I think it was cool.
Hmm.
And then dun sa opening lines and all of that, of course, I use the term quote unquote. Everyone expected essentially like this, and what came out is kind of a weird pseudo reformer, pseudo tough on South China Sea, or maybe not so pseudo in fairness on the South China Sea. So each side is interpreting it different ways. I was kind of in hot waters, which is something I don't mind. Actually, I'm beginning to enjoy. Now I've been enjoying this debates and all of.
Matagal ka ng hasang-hasa dyan, pare. Matagal mo nang kaya yan. Ano ba yan? Si Big R talaga, oh.
But
Matagal ka ng Big R dyan.
okay, delikado tayo dyan. But bro, ito. Having said that, many people don't read that. Towards the end of the article, I still argue that I'm still standing by my first Journal of Democracy piece where I said he could still become an insidious threat to Philippine democracy in light of the Chacha discussion. Now, before going to the whole Chacha debate and all, I just want to get your point of view as a historian. But don't you think na there's also this element na hindi man kadiri, pero parang yung mga Western countries, masyado ba silang tuwan-tuwa kay Marcos bigla? Is the contrast with Duterte pushing people to I mean, ikaw anong basa mo dito? Kasi I think you and I argue that hindi siya naging Tatay 2.0 or Marcos Senior 2.0. Sure. But at the same time, I think that we're falling into a different fallacy, which is we're overreading into the not so bad things. So I'm gonna be bashed now.
Ikaw yung nagsabi sa akin na marami ka nakakausap sa diplomatic community na ang unang tanong sa'yo is, kamusta ang presidente nyo? How's your president? Will he be fine? Ganyan. So I will defer to you on that, pero I think babalikan ko lang yung kwento na yun. When I think about Western countries falling in love with BBM, yung mga interactions na yun yung lagi kong naaalala. So matanong lang kita, meron ka pa mga ganong klaseng interactions? Nauulit pa ba yun?
Bro, but the other thing is I'm not gonna say who. I met an editor from a very big international magazine. I'm not gonna say which. Mamaya text siya. And then like we were talking about diplomats and all, and parang sinabi niya, parang shock siya na yung mga Western diplomats in general, like tuwan-tuwa kay BBM and all of that, na parang sobrang parang invested sila dyan. And for me, I understand where that comes from, pero parang I don't know, medyo baka you know what I'm saying, like I just want to make sure that people don't get ahead of themselves, kasi for me one thing good I realized with BBM is that alam mo yung term na ginamit ni Bernie Sanders, you may not like Hillary Clinton, but unlike Trump, at least you can keep her leg next to the fire, right? There will be some responsiveness and accountability, which you'll not get with Trump. My sense with Duterte was the same. Good luck, getting accountability.
Oh,
But
yeah, yeah. Oh.
I feel if
Asa ka
you
pa.
pressure him, you push back, etc., he will be responsive, especially from outside. So ang fear ko is baka sa over-embrace sa kanya, ang suspecha ko nga siya yung magiging speaker of Shangri-La Dialogue soon, which is a very big defense event. So I see all of these people from all over the world, Western countries, come over, gushing over him and all of that. My fear is that might make that argument a bit weaker, because if he feels that everyone is so invested in him, then he might be a little bit more adventurous and push the envelope, especially itong Chacha.
Interesting, bro. Interesting.
Kasi this Chacha that's the thing. People are bashing me for saying I'm pinapabango ko si BBM, but actually I was among the first person to warn about this Chacha last year pa lang, the first time I heard about it. Kasi I can see the logic of Chacha. That's how you avoid Sara Duterte winning in 2028, right? I-Chacha mo yan, parliamentary, lagay mo ng si Martin Romualdez, whoever there. Then solve na yung problem mo. But a lot of things could also go wrong along the way. Now, yung isang week, probably you heard yung discussion namin with Ronaldo. Si BBM came out and said, hindi, ayoko itong PI na ito, itong People's Initiative, Chacha na ito. Si Zubiri, nagdrama-drama, away-away, mga ganun. But, last time I checked, I
Totoo
heard...
ba yun, bro? Or sa tingin mo, moro-moro lang yung away nila ni Zubiri?
Hindi, mukhang panic talaga ang Senate.
Oh,
So, magiging irrelevant sila. Ang gusto
okay.
nangyari ng Congress is they will ram it through. the Senate, which is
Mm.
like 20 plus people, 20 odd people. Ilan ba yung Kongreso? 300 plus, di ba? They're trying to make the Senate irrelevant, di ba? Kaya nga ako curious ako yung maging stance ni Raffy Tulfo dito eh. But you know, the thing is, parang si Salceda pa, sino ba nagsabi? Na actually, may plano talaga by third quarter of this year yata, June or July, ipapapush na itong referendum na ito and then push it all the way unless the Supreme Court steps in. So, crazy things could still happen, bro.
So, anong basa mo ngayon sa Supreme Court kung ganyan? Kasi primarily Duterte appointees pa rin yan. So you have two big institutions na kalaban mo, yung Senado at yung Supreme Court. Although, there are ways in which kayang mandohan ng incumbent president ang Supreme Court kahit appointee yan ng previous president, di ba? Kayang takutin yan eh. In various ways, di ba? And we saw this, for example, well, yung extreme version nito, yung kay Corona, of course, kay Noynoy. Pero kayang takutin ng Supreme Court. The Supreme Court can be disciplined by a very, very strong executive. So anong laro, is there a way forward here? I guess my question is, kaya ba to, is this possible? Kasi many have tried since FVR, di ba? In many ways, almost every president, with the exception, I think, of Noynoy Aquino, who should have actually been the one to try, by the way, for
He
charter
kind
change.
of said in an interview with Rappler, he kind of said something along those lines, but he never acted upon it, at least per Ronaldo. The real big R, sabi ni real big R na, yes, he was just thinking out loud, but actually he never raised that in cabinet meetings. Because I point blank asked Ronaldo, sabi ko, Sir Ronaldo, si Pinoy din, sinabi niya rin yan sa Rappler. Ay, hindi, sabi niya, actually, si Pinoy lang talagang hindi nag-effort in that
Try,
direction.
oh. So what makes them think that, and what makes those people think that this is possible? What makes them think that they can succeed where others have failed?
Ako kasi, yun nga, one reason kasi remember I don't know if you remember one of the discussion we had. Hindi ka pala kasama kasi wala yung internet mo. Yung parang sinabi Ronaldo na baka nga if the father started the NPA communist rebellion, baka the son will oversee its end. Not because of his brilliance but because of timing. And then I thought maybe the same argument could work also in constitutional change na while all of us are so excited about, BBM not turning out as Duterte and him going after Duterte in some way. In fact, speaking of Supreme Court question, that's where the ICC comes in. I think if ICC comes in, all all bets are off, di ba? And speaking of Supreme Court, there was a study that pinost ni Professor Munsod last year, which showed that rarely do Supreme Court justices vote against an incumbent that appointed them. Well, Duterte is not an incumbent anymore. And then if ICC comes in, I think there'll be kind of I won't say liberal revolution, but there'll be a liberal wave because it's going to energize all the progressive and liberals in the Philippines. It's going to bring out all of this discourse about accountability. BBM medyo maging mabango siya and inevitably will be kind of in the liberal camp, di ba? So I cannot foresee a situation where the Supreme Court will try to act conservative in a situation where the ICC comes in. So for me, the one big factor will be whether ICC warrants of arrest will be issued this year, if ever there were going to be. Ronald was always more optimistic than me. I think it's always splitting the difference. So I'm interviewing Ruben Carranza, soon to also discuss the ICJ, ICC issues. Marami nangyari all around.
Nice.
So we'll also have a special episode on that forward ko sa'yo. So I'm not going to pretend that I have a final answer on this issue. Now, speaking of the Chacha issue, clearly, I think Martin Romualdez and some people there have an interest in pushing with this because it's a question of timing. Because
Sara Duterte, and the question of Sara Duterte.
The question of Sara Duterte, it's a fear that if they wait this out after the midterms, baka kung ma-delay na yan by 2026, no one cares about BBM anymore. And everyone's going to talk about Tulfo and Sara and maybe Riza, right, as the next presidential post 2028. So as BBM himself said correctly in 2014-15 when he was a senator, if you're going to do this, do it while you're still in your early years in office. So maybe behind the scenes, there is an understanding. Maybe BBM is saying the PI1, the way it's being done. Napanood mo yung commercial na Etsepuera?
Yung na hindi ko pinanood pero nabalitaan ko.
Sobrang sloppy. I mean, and then you have a situation na Pulong, Robin Hood Padilla coming out against this Chacha like this is weird. Like, wait, you guys Duterte are pro.
Kayo yung OG.
Exactly. So
it'd be interesting. Anong opinion ni Tita Arroyo, the great Chacha advocate?
Alam mo parang quiet si tita.
Oh.
Kasi hindi nga
Di
siya
ba siya si ano, I want a parliamentary system for the Philippines.
Oy, hindi na siya ngayon magandang-ganda siya ngayon, ha. Ano, medyo yung mga ano, parang Enrile yung mga yan, tatanda yan na maganda.
Oh,
Uy, bakit tita? Alam mo na, di ba? Kung mayaman ka today, there are many ways to keep very, very young. Okay. Or unless you're Papa P. I mean, my goodness, Piolo Pascual is almost 50 rata. Like, he looks like a 20-year-old guy. Yung
wala. Eternal yan. Eternal yan si Papa
grabe
P.
yun. No sugar daw siya. I know, good luck doing that. If it doesn't, do you do
Wala
sugar?
yan.
I mean, I cannot write and all kung walang sugar at all. Nahihirapan ako. I don't know. Carbs maybe I can cut, but sugar, I don't know. So good luck kung you wanna be happy in our profession. But no, but
Oh.
going back to this, bro. My sense is there are really some people invested who want to get this through. BBM, siguro hindi siya natuwa dun sa the way the Etsapuera thing happened and sloppiness of that. But if they can do this in a more sophisticated fashion and stealthy fashion, I don't think BBM will stand in their way. But I think if mag-iingay tayong lahat and there's going to be international pressure, maybe BBM will kind of say, okay, let's slow this down or consider some other option. Because you know they have three options: PI, Constituent Assembly, CONAS, and Constitution Convention, right? So he has to make the decision very soon. And as I said, I think the clincher here is the ICC. Because if the ICC decision comes in the next 3 months, sa sobrang gulo mangyari, bro, baka doon pa nila ipupush ito, di ba? I mean, you can imagine,
Pailalim.
oh my God, ang gulo nun, di
Oo,
ba, bro? And then
pailalim.
exactly where,
Pero
okay, basta natin to, di ba?
alam mo bro, yung isip ko lang kailan talaga kasi yung difficulty ko dito is kailan talaga naman kasi talagang pag-usapan ng Chacha eh.
Actually, I was just about to say.
Yun yung mahirap dito eh. Yun yung mahirap dito eh. Kasi hindi naman talaga, we do not have a perfect constitution. And one of the nice things about the unraveling of the EDSA narrative is, hindi na sinasanto yung konstitusyon na yan. Except for a couple of people who think na parang lahat nandun sa konstitusyon na yan. Unfortunately, si Mr. Christian Monsod, who was one of the drafters of the constitution, still thinks that if we had just followed the constitution to a letter, then many of our problems could have been averted. No, I think there are really fundamental problems in the Constitution.
Such
For
as,
for
I mean, what is your take? I have
for
my
one thing, kailangan talagang ilibing si Claro Recto. Hindi pa natin na patay na si Claro Recto pero hindi pa natin nalilibing si Claro Recto. What do we mean by that? Yung economically nationalist provision
nationalists.
na dinadaya lang din naman ng mga mayayaman so that the people who are able to come in with foreign business partners are those people who are able to cheat the system. You should really get rid of that completely, di ba? And marami namang advocate niyan. I remember nung 2016 election, ang pinakamalaking advocate niyan, si Only Binay. Right? Nung panahon na yun.
Oh,
So,
yan.
kailangan talagang pag-usapan yun. And yung parliamentary system is actually for a country like the Philippines, I think it could work, 'di ba? Because we really need to tell people na pag-isipan ang partido. Mahina ang party democracy natin. So of course there are many ways to build a party-based democracy, but one way to do that is to creating a structure that inherently encourages people to think in terms of parties. If you like a president, pwede pa rin naman may president on top of the prime minister, 'di ba?
Symbolic, yeah, yeah, kind of a ceremonial.
Oo, pwede naman kung mahilig talaga tayo sa presidente since uso sa atin ang directly elected president. So pwede pa rin naman 'yon, 'di ba? So yung problema ko is kailangan naman talaga pag-usapan, but when are we ever going to trust our politicians enough na pag sinabi nila, pag-usapan natin yung Chacha, hindi natin pagsususpetsyahan na may ulterior motive? Will it ever get to that point? Hindi ko alam.
Wala pa rin, di ba?
The only time nga that was possible was si
Yeah,
Noy Noy. Kung si
yeah.
Noy Noy sinabi niya, palitan na natin tong konstitusyon ng nanay
Wala
ko.
na. That window closed, bro. Wala na.
Oo nga eh, di ba? So, ewan ko ewan ko.
I don't know, bro. I mean, are we gonna wait for a Rafi Tulfo or Riza administration? I don't know, bro. Kasi I'll be honest, as I said, I don't mind seeing a prime minister in the Philippines. I think your type, my type, has even a better chance in the parliamentary system, right? I mean, age
Exactly.
natin nagiging prime minister na sa France, di ba? So
Exactly.
honestly, in theory, I personally, I like a more parliamentary system because I think there could be more choices for people like you and I, who find
Yes.
the current system just too like incorrigible, right?
Mm.
But yun nga I mean, to be honest, like speaking of the ceremonial president, di ba? BBM has sovereign immunity because he's the president of the republic. If they do a cha-cha, and even if he just becomes ceremonial president, he'll still have that sovereign immunity,
Oo
right?
nga 'no. Oo,
So
oo,
he can
oo.
still travel without any trouble to United
Oo
States.
nga 'no.
I
Oo
mean,
nga 'no.
because ceremonial president can have another 6-year tenure in office. And then yung prime minister, whoever na lang, siguro si Martin Muna or whatever. I'm just saying, ang laki ng incentive for BBM to seal the deal on the cha-cha issue.
Seal
It's a
the deal.
question of how he does it, under what circumstances. So siguro at some point, I hate to say this, Lelo, I had to say, I really like that you said what you said, right? Because at some point, tanggapin na dapat natin, magkakaroon talaga ng some sort of charter change. It's just a question of how bad or what's the best we can get out of it considering the state of play.
Alam
You
mo
know,
alam mo
I
alam mo
hate
yung
saying
alam mo
that.
yung
It's
alam mo
debating.
yung parang
It
yung
is
kay
what it
BBM
is.
kasi sa tingin ko yung anti-EDSA narrative freaked out a lot of the Dilawan eh. Kung strategy lang ba? Strategy lang. Sabihin natin kung ako si na Martin, hindi ko babanatan yung EDSA. Gagawin ko napaka-narrow, anti-Sara. Anti-Sara. Eh
But
di ko
yun nga eh,
binanatan
pag
yung
say
EDSA,
that
hindi ko
how
na eliminate yung mga Dilawan, ginawa kong
prioritize
anti-Sara, baka may manakuha pa akong Dilawan. Di ba? Medyo bobo yung move eh.
But bro, may mga dilawan daw na nagsaside with Sara against this Chacha and all. I mean, what yung mga never Marcos type. Oh, by the way, shout out
May mag
Director Vince Tanyado joining us. Baka mamaya pati si Pepe Joke na mag-join dito. But kaya ingat lang tayo sa mga sinasabi natin sa mga pelikula. Shout out, sir. Now, going back to this, Leloy. Kaya nga gustong-gusto kitang kausap kasi you say the things na very like on ay mukhang mapunta na tayo dyan eh. Like it's just a matter of how we're just gonna cross that bridge. We have I mean honestly bro, I'm thinking about it. Hindi mag-work talaga the way Philippines is. Ang labo na manalo yung isang matinong presidente. Even if manalo yung matinong presidente, kung yung kongreso may puro mga ganyan tao, parang ang labo eh. So a part of me
no, ano yun talaga, no system is
or
forever.
lock siya eh. And you're absolutely right. Constitution should be a living document that fits the
Mm.
purpose of the moment. And
Meron ako isang, I don't know kung minor to, but you know, as a women's rights advocate, there's one thing in this constitution that I absolutely hate: constitutional ban on abortion.
divorce
There's a
maybe.
constitutional ban on abortion, 'di ba? So this is for me that makes a certain part of the document a theocratic document. Hindi eternal itong document. There are
Pero
many things about this na nakakainis.
how dare you, just because you come from a woke place, Berkeley, California, to impose your values on us? You know, like President Trump will fix that problem in 2025.
'Di ba, in
My
many
God.
ways nga Republican wet dream yung constitution natin, 'di ba? My God, may constitutional ban on abortion. Now if the Americans got hold of that, oh my God, you know.
I'm telling my friend. Oh, actually, US is interesting, right? I think this is the Supreme Court with the most number of Catholics, right? Like
Oo nga, no?
five or six Catholic justices. Like
Oh.
it's unprecedented. I never. I mean, like U.S. Supreme Court is feeling very Filipino
Oh.
nowadays,
Oh.
right? I mean, their jurisprudence, their argument. I'm just saying, it's just an amazing detail that came to my mind. But going back
So
to
bro, paano na? Ano, is there a way to move forward here?
ako, okay, okay. I'll put aside my Ilustrado side, and I'll just be a wonky guy. Right? As a wonk, this is my suggestion: make the most ingay and pressure so that if this chacha is about to happen, A, you avoid Sara, if you are never Duterte camp, and B, get the least bad version out of this chacha, and C, hope that we still can inject some good elements into that so that 5 to 10 years from now we can get a decent prime minister or two, or at least some good political party. So this is a 3-step wonky approach I have. The Ilustrado in me, of course, will go against any kind of, as I said, you cannot fix the problem if the problem is the fixer. But yun nga eh, that's a problem. Yung Ilustrado natin, side natin, minsan malabo yan sa katotohanan ng ating politika. So I'm actually conflicted, bro, on this point.
Ako, sobrang
Excited, I'm
conflicted
very
ako.
anxious. I'm very
At
anxious.
saka meron pa rin part of me. This is a Marcos trying to change the constitution.
Which is what we can use against him to pressure him not to mumbo jumbo it, right? Because
I mean, just ko for someone na may trauma pa rin, and I didn't live through it, but you know, I've studied it a lot and I know how it works, and I know kung paano talaga binaboy yung legal system natin nung 72, 'di ba? Marcos proposing constitutional change is, it gives me goosebumps, and I don't know if that's fair to say na, maybe in his mind he's like, have I not proven to you that I'm not my father? I don't know, pero yung gut reaction lang, yung gut lang talaga, nakakatakot yun. If there's a Marcos, if the guy named Ferdinand Marcos is proposing to change the constitution, my God, that gives me goosebumps. And I don't know how fair that is, but that's just a kind of gut reaction on my part.
But my point is, isn't that also the weapon of the opposition, right?
Hmm.
It's so easy to mobilize international opinion if you say, can you blame me if I cannot trust constitutional change? I think the term even they use is not, this is not an EDSA constitution. This is not a Philip. This is a Aquino constitution we want to fix. Like that whole rhetoric, that
Hmm.
Maharlika-ish Marcos rhetoric. I don't know. I think the Maharlika investment fund episode, I'm not making the Dilawan argument. I think it showed some interesting things. It showed that it's not too hard to mobilize against the Marcoses when they bring up this nostalgic argument. At the same time, it also shows that Marcos will push through if he wants with something that is close to his, I don't know,
Hmm.
brand. But C, it also shows that in the end, you can come up with a version that is not as evil as critics thought. I mean, look at the final version of the Maharlika Investment Fund compared to the first version proposed.
Hmm.
So much better. So that's a good argument, right? I think the Maharlika Investment Fund is kind of a microcosm of what could happen
Oh,
in a
that's interesting. That's
it's a
interesting.
good
Oh.
parallel, di ba? I just thought about it right now. Now,
Hmm.
maybe this could give us, that's a good point. Thank you so much, Ria, bro. Napaisip ako bigla doon. I think this
So
could be a
you're saying
test
hindi
case.
so you're saying hindi ito yung parang hindi ito 72. Hindi si Gilbert Teodoro, walang failed assassination attempt kay Gilbert Teodoro. Hindi nila aarestuhin yung hindi nila aarestuhin si Zubiri, si Risa Ontiveros. They're going to ram something through peacefully. And then in that peaceful process, hopefully makapasok tayo. Is
It's a
that
mixed bag. It's just a question of how mixed, like in what direction. Like it's gonna be 50 shades. Is it darker shades or lighter shade? Uh, of course, the Mark Twain thing history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. But what's less than rhyme? I think that's what's
hindi
gonna
ko
happen.
nga alam. The
It
one thing one
rhyme,
thing
but
I'm
it's less than rhyme. Yeah, yeah.
But there is already one thing I'm sure of. Sigurado ako na that by disposition, this Ferdinand Marcos is not the same as the older Ferdinand Marcos. Yun parang anybody who makes the argument na ang disposition nito at ang end goal nito is similar to the fathers. I
Correct.
think naglolokohan na lang tayo, okay? Love him or hate him, you have to hate him for different reasons. If you hate him, and there are reasons to hate him, but you have to hate him from different reasons, from the reasons you hated the father. Dahil obviously, ibang-ibang tao ito. So if he rams through a constitutional change, it is going to look very different from yung ginawa ng tatay niya. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? I myself
But I think that's a good
oh.
analysis. That's a good analysis. I think if Amy Marcos were the president right now, I would make a slightly different argument, wouldn't
Mm, mm.
honestly,
Ah,
that was always my point. I mean, people can attest. Before elections, I said BBM, iba yan. It's not Marcos Sr. I always said, but I didn't say it's necessarily a good thing. I just said don't panic. Literally, my article the day after Marcos won for Nikkei Asia was no cause for panic. I didn't say it's going to be good. I just said don't go for the eject bottom yet, diba? Fight for whatever is left of our
yeah.
democracy. Things could go in the right direction. And thank God, so far I've been proven right. So I think the next chapter right now is how do we approach these chachas?
Ang chismis by the way is very conflicted yung chismis na lang 'to, pero very conflicted yung relationship ni BBM sa tatay niya. Hindi yung kind of unambiguous adoration ng kagaya ni
Ba yan
Amy,
or parang more or less open secret na yan?
Open secret, na parang na hindi sila they did not get along all the time.
And I'm working on a book on Marcos, Return of Marcos is based on yung mga Journal of Democracy pieces among others. And what the episode I'm really most interested in is the Hawaii days.
Oo nga raw. Ang dami daw tension. Yun din
Yeah,
narinig ko, dami daw tension
a
between
lot
yung matanda
happened
at
there.
yung
So I need
junior
to
sa
go to Hawaii,
Hawaii.
my relatives Ilocano there and get chismis and all. That's a very, very, I think that explains all of these differences we're seeing. Because let's not forget, as our good friend Manuel Quezon III said, he was the last hawk. He was a very aggressive man in the last hours of his father's regime. So something really happened during that exile. I mean, if I can interview him directly, I doubt that I can get something out of him on that. But I want to research that because I think the Hawaii days were really the decisive moments. And there's something also about Hawaii makes you a little bit
Hmm.
mellow down and soul search. Soul search.
Ganyan, 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 ganyan.
I know. Thank you so much. Wag na tayo mag-polvoronic discussions. Thank you so much,
Oh,
bro.
wag na, oo.
Really appreciate this. God bless. Thank you very much, bro.
Thank you, salamat.
Salamat.